Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And it is our strictly two-player month. Throughout the month of July, we're covering all sorts of strictly two-player games in hopes of finding one for you and just sharing some of our thoughts on them.
Exactly. And in this series, our Check It Out, where we introduce various board games to you to do exactly what Ilya just said, we're going to take a look at Sobek 2 Players. Yeah. Sobek 2 Players is published by Panasaurus Games and is designed by Bruno Cathala and Sébastien Pauchon.
The temple for Sobek is currently being constructed, and it is your role as a merchant to maybe capitalize on that situation a little bit. You're taking advantage of the temple being constructed and hoping to win Sobek's favor by being the least corrupt merchant.
Let's take a quick look at how to play the game.
As always, you'll begin by setting up. You'll shuffle the 10 starting tiles and deal 2 face down to each player. 4 of the remaining tiles will go onto the central squares of the board face up, and the other 2 will be returned to the box. You then shuffle the remaining tiles and fill the market, making sure that all the tiles are oriented the same way as the board. You then unshuffle the Pirogue tokens and place 5 in the slots, and prepare the Debin bag by placing the tokens into it and shaking it up. You'll randomly choose the first player and give them the Ankh pawn, and now you're ready to begin. Your goal in this game is to amass more wealth than your opponent. To do that, you'll collect goods and call on influential characters to make the most profitable sales. You'll have to keep an eye on your corruption so that the god Sobek may tilt the balance in your favor. Now this game is played in turn. However, on the first turn, the player with the Ankh pawn must choose one of the 4 tiles in the central square and add it to their hand. Then they'll replace the tile they took with the Ankh pawn, orienting it so that it lines up with the brown direction marks on the tile they've taken. Now it's their opponent's turn. Now on your turn in this game, you must perform one of the 3 actions. Take a tile from the market, sell a set of tiles, or play a character. When you take a tile from the market, you'll take a look at the Ankh pawn. Based on the direction that it is pointing, either row, column, or diagonal, you're able to take the tiles within that direction. After you take the tile, you'll place the Ankh pawn on its place, orienting it so that it lines up with the brown direction marks on the tile. Now, if you take the tiles that the pawn is pointing to, you can just add them to your hand. However, if you pass over any tiles and take further tiles, any of those that you've passed over will go face down onto your corruption board and count as a corruption. Now, the player with the least corruption by the end of the game will earn extra Debin tokens, which will acquire more wealth for the player. You'll also notice some of the goods tile have a Debin token on them. When taking these tiles, you can either take the tile, or you can choose to discard the tile and draw a random Debin token from the bag. Now when you take a character tile, you won't show it to your opponent, so you'll just keep it hidden in your hand. And you can orient the Ankh pawn in any direction of your choice, as long as it's pointing to at least one available tile in the market. Now if you wish to take a tile but the Ankh pawn is pointing to only empty squares, you must fill the market before taking the tile. You'll remove the Ankh pawn from the board and fill the market. You'll do this by first filling the central square clockwise, then the middle ring clockwise, and then the outer ring clockwise. After that, you'll choose one of the 4 tiles in the center square, add it to your hand, and replace it with the Ankh pawn, orienting it so it lines up with the direction marks as previously. Now another action you can take is selling a set of tiles. On your turn, you can sell a set of matching tiles to earn points for the end of the game. In order to do that, you'll need to reveal at least 3 tiles of the same type from your hand and place them face up in front of you. Now you can also include a character tile in a set if it has the good icon matching the set. When you play a character this way, you will not use their ability. Now Sobek statues are wild and can be included in any set. And you also don't have to include all the tiles of that set, as long as you sell at least 3 of that tile. Now, if you sell a set of the same type later on, you just simply add them to the previous set that you sold earlier. This counts as one combined set for scoring at the end of the game. However, you still must reveal at least 3 new tiles to expand a set. Now, each time you sell a set, if there's any Pirogue tokens left in the 5 slots along the board, you must take one and use its ability. You can look at all of them, choose one, and immediately use its ability, removing it from the game. Pirogue tokens allow you to potentially take another full turn, earn points for the end of the game, contribute to your opponent's corruption, and other actions. Now the last action you can take is to play a character. You can use your turn to play a character tile from your hand and immediately apply its special ability. Once you've used the ability, you remove the character from the game. Characters allow you to do all sorts of different things. For example, the Architect allows you to draw 3 Baroque tokens from the ones set aside at the beginning of the game, choose one, and immediately use its ability. The Queen lets you take the first 3 tiles that drop onto your hand. If there's fewer than 3 remaining, take as many as possible. Now you'll keep playing until the end of the game is triggered. Now this happens immediately when a player has no valid actions to perform on their turn. What this means is at the start of their turn, the Ankh pawn is pointing only to empty squares, and the draw pile is empty, and you have no valid set you can sell, and you have no character you can play. At that point, both players must first tally up their corruption. If the player who did not end the game has any more valid sets of goods, they'll simply be removed from the game, not being scored. Now all the rest of the tiles the players hold will be added to their corruption board. Each player then tallies up the total number of tiles on their corruption board as well as any Baroque tokens that contribute and add corruption. The player with the least corruption earns Sobek's favor. They'll draw 1 Debin token plus 1 extra for every 3 less corruption they have than their opponent. And now you're ready for final scoring. You'll determine your final scores using the 2 score tokens on the score track on the back of the player aids. Each set of goods the player has in front of them is worth a number of tiles multiplied by the number of scarabs in the set. And then they'll score Debins. Each player reveals their face down Debin tokens and adds up their value. You'll add both of those numbers and the player with the most points wins. Will you be the most wealthy merchant, or will corruption get you down? Down, down, down. What do you think?
I really like this one. It's a fun little puzzle that takes a short amount of time. It like breezes by, and I really appreciate that, particularly in 2-player games, I think. And this one is just, I just had a joy playing.
Yeah. There is a stack of tiles and you think it's going to get refilled a lot of times, but sometimes it's only once that the board gets refilled, and that's it. So the length with the varying tiles I think seemed a little bit daunting at first, but it definitely wasn't after a few playthroughs.
Yeah, it's like, it just ends up being how the tiles are placed, that like there's more combinations possible on the board than you would think, and yeah, there it is.
I've had a lot of fun with it, but before we get into the specifics, let's talk about some of the comparables that make you think of this game.
Yeah, of
Do
course.
you want me to start with mine?
Yes, do it.
Well, I'm going to kick it off with King Domino. Obviously, Bruno Cathala designed both these games. You can see kind of the design kind of carried forward a little bit.
Specifically in
the scoring. Yeah. So I'll talk about the scoring because in Sobek 2 players, your scoring is the number of tiles you have multiplied by the scarabs you have on the tiles. It's very similar in King Domino, where it's the amount of terrain that you have multiplied by the crowns. But so that's the obvious connection. I think the less obvious connection here is that push and pull. You can maybe go for the ivory, which has a lot of scarabs and has a lot of, but there's less tiles in the game. So you have to really strategically try to outsmart your opponent and take them. And that's very similar in King Domino, because you can go for those black tiles. I forget what they're specifically called.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And because they have more crowns, but there's less of them. Or you can collect more of the masses and try to go for that quantity. So I really like kind of that tug and pull, and you're really trying to decide like what strategy I'm going to approach my play with this time, and like what, based on my situation, what will work best for me. So yeah, King Domino really reminds me of this game a little bit. I think this is a little bit of a step up, because I think there's definitely much more thinking ahead, where King Domino's kind of use what you have for the best of your game at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like, it helps that you can see, like, in Sobek, you see the whole board, and you know which way, like, the idol will be placed when you take a certain tile. So I think, like, you can play for that. And because it's just a 2-player game, you can kind of say, okay, well, if I move it here and it has to be twisted this way, that means Ilya has to do that, or take an action, which means I'm free to just make that move by myself, which could be beneficial.
What did you pick for your comparable?
I feel like mine is more of a stretch than yours.
Okay.
I picked Shifting Stones.
Interesting.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know about Shifting Stones, it's this game where you're essentially have goals in your hand that have different colored stones on them, and everybody's taking turns trying to maneuver the stones in the center of the board, whether that be flipping them over or swapping places, to make the goal in their hand. And when they do that, they complete the goal and they're able to like lock that in for points later on. The reason why I think it's comparable to Sobek is actually particularly with that middle piece board, where all the players are using that board in some kind of manner to make it most advantageous for them. So you might, whether that be like planning ahead for your next turns, or simply just like moving things around so you can score or get the right tiles. I think Sobek has that aspect where you're like, I need to be able to get this tile, so how do I do that? By maneuvering around in certain ways.
Yeah, I like the comparison because it's more of like the board manipulation, because all of a sudden if you move the Ankh pawn this way, then I'm like, oh no, I wanted it to be here. So it's kind of like that board. Interesting. Okay, well, why should you check out Sobek 2 players?
A lot of reasons, obviously.
What are they?
No. The first one I'd mention actually is the variety of different scoring opportunities you have in this game. Obviously, the main driver of this game is collecting those merchant tiles and scoring points based on the scarabs times the number of tiles the same resource tile that you have. That's like one way to score the majority of your points, I would say. But there are other small ways that can really like shift the tide in your favor that you can utilize during the game.
Just one way. The Devon tokens.
The Devon tokens, yeah. Yeah, that's true. So you can use these Devon tokens and it adds this like flair of randomness, and then also like gives you an opportunity to utilize the board that's there, maybe mess with your opponent by taking certain tiles that you can then discard and take those tokens and score yourself some extra points. And then that also said, I feel like they've done a good job like distributing the tiles, and because you're able to see them when you're playing, there isn't that heavy drive or like desire. Well, sometimes there's the desire. There's definitely a desire for me to do this, but to go for the tokens that aren't as accessible or show up rarely. So you grab them and you get to score a bunch of points. But you don't always have to do that to take the lead in this game, and I really appreciate that.
I like the threshold of having to score with 3 tiles, because sometimes it can become tricky because you can find 2, and then you're really banking on either a wild token or another one, or maybe a character with that token. And that tension of it is really interesting, so if you appreciate that, I think you'll enjoy this game too. I think the other thing too is it looks like a pretty complex game, but it's fairly streamlined and it plays fairly quickly.
Oh yeah.
So don't be too daunted by the amount of tokens and the way that the game looks, because I think it flies by, which I appreciate quite a lot.
Yeah, the only thing that I have to always double check on now is like what the merchants tiles do. And they conveniently have like this perfect
the player aids.
guide.
Yeah, there's a couple of, for the Pure tokens as well, they have the sheets, which are really handy.
So those are the only ones I end up referencing, but once you figure out like the whole movement and set collecting,
and once you play it a few times, you learn the characters too, which is really nice.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I'll say is the art in this game is really inviting. The cows are particularly very cute.
The cows are my favorite, actually.
Well, they don't have much competition. It's cows or wood.
Yeah. Well, they're like the fish, but even in some of the fish, they're like dried bones.
Most of them are dead. So like, I don't know. The cows kind of have easy competition here.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the last thing I'll say too is there is that kind of luck element too, where like the Devon tokens comes in, so you have a certain amount of hidden information for scoring, and the characters, depending who you draw, you may be more advantageous, and I think that can make it really exciting, because even if your opponent's way ahead, maybe a couple of characters, a couple of Devon tokens, you're back in the game, competing for that victory.
Yeah. Or they think they're ahead and they just kind of coast on, and you're like secretly holding on
all
to a bunch
the 9s
of
and 8s and 7s you have.
Exactly.
So why shouldn't you check it out?
Exactly what you just said.
So if you don't enjoy luck, I think that's another kind of flip element.
I do think that like there is an aspect of luck to the game, as with many board games that you will play. There's always going to be some aspect of luck. But in this case, I think that there are some like characters that are really overpowering, that can also like give you that edge when you really need it.
I think I have an example. So there's a character, for example, it's a little bit mean too. So, because there's no hand limit for tiles in this game, all of a sudden you have 15 tiles, they're all planned out, they're high scoring, and you play one of the characters that makes you discard down to 6 into your
Yeah.
corruption.
Yeah.
So there go all your points, there goes all your hard work, and that's like a little, I can't play that character because I'm like, that's so mean, I can't, that's so much work that the other person's put into, so I usually just play them for their symbol. But I think there's some take that element too if you don't enjoy that too.
Yeah, I think it just like kind of depends on like how it's all laid out, and you don't know the characters on the board because they're flipped face down. So you don't know which ones you should be going for, how advantageous each of those sections are. So you're kind of taking a gamble, and I guess that kind of like offsets it. But my point is because there's that that specific random piece to it, I think that sometimes it can put a sour taste in your mouth, particularly with the example that Ilya gave. But other than that, it's just normal randomness.
I feel like I say this in a lot of games for the why not to check it out, but I think for me, I really like spatial games and kind of thinking ahead and planning. If that's not your forte, you actually can see the board and see, if this route is taken, the game is probably going to end soon because there's only so limited ways that this can go. And you can kind of plan routes to try to get to the pieces that you want and hope your opponent plays your game and kind of follows the piece, be like, give them the piece that they want, and then in exchange maybe you can get what you want. So there is that spatial element, but if that's not something you enjoy in games, I think you might not enjoy this one as much as I have personally.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of my other point that I wanted to make, and that's like this game can actually end up being a mind game with your opponent because it's just a 2-player game. And you're doing exactly what Ilya said. You can kind of route out how like new tiles can come on, or when the game is possibly going to end, or even like the exchange of tiles. So you can put yourself in a position where you're like, okay, well, I'll give Ilya this tile because if he takes it, then I will get this tile and I really want this tile. Or if he doesn't take it, I just take it and it's beneficial to me. So like there is this way to just kind of be like, oh hey, here's what I'm doing. And then Ilya will be like motivated to do the certain thing that I'm trying to get him to do. And it can become like fairly obvious.
Games.
Yeah. And if you're not into that, if you're more into like the playing the game, but I guess that's part of the game. But if that style of game, I guess, doesn't hit your check boxes, then this probably isn't one you want to look at. So overall, what do we think?
I think it's a really solid 2-player game. I really enjoy it. It has the element of playing your opponent and trying to get into their head. There's a really fun puzzle to it. It has mechanics of set collection. Why am I blanking? What other?
It has mechanics of set collection.
Kind of route building too.
Not really, but yes.
Yeah,
right.
So like a lot of the things I really enjoy in the game, the cows are very cute. So this is a game that I will want to play again and again, and I've really enjoyed. What about you?
Yeah, this is exactly what Ilya kind of said. The only point that I would add is that it plays fairly quick, so you can always just pick it up, drop it down, and then you'll be like...
Drop it down?
Yeah, it takes like 15, 20 minutes to play, maybe. I mean, it says 20 minutes on here, so... It is pretty accurate.
Is it?
I think so. And I've just enjoyed trying to like collect different things, try to utilize the merchant characters more often. There is a little bit of depth to this game that I can appreciate. And it fits all the boxes when it comes to 2-player games for me.
It fits all the boxes. So for our question of the day, and something we actually haven't talked about yet, is that Sobek is... not re-implement. It's like a 2-player version of an older game. Yeah. So we haven't played the original. We haven't played Sobek. So I'm curious to play to see how it feels. And our question of the day kind of relates to that, and it's more kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah.
What 2-player only game would you want be re-implemented as a
multiplayer
game?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Higher than 2-player. The ones that we've been playing. I think it would be cool to have Bandata as a multiplayer game.
I like that
because I really enjoy that game. And yeah, I think it has the potential to be a multiplayer game, and I'd be happy to play it at multiplayer.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too. The first one that came in mind for me was actually Fox and the Forest Duet.
Okay.
Because I feel like it'd be interesting to have... Yeah, I like the cooperative one so much more. Because I like the collecting the gems and being really like cunning and smart. But I wonder if there's like a larger board, and then you pull in different directions and try to... Like it'd be more like
Yeah.
not as linear, which I think would be really fun. So that'd be the one that I want to see. Well, thank you so much for checking it out of Sobek 2 players. This whole month we're doing coverage of strictly 2-player games in hopes of inspiring you to try some of them and also learn a little bit more about the 2-player genre.
Exactly. So you can check out our Instagram where we're going to be taking a lot of photos to learn a little bit more about the games that we're going to be covering, because the list is about 50 games long and we're not going to have enough time to make 50 videos of every single one of those games.
But each of those games will be featured in a YouTube video.
Exactly. Some way or another.
So keep an eye for our reviews, playthroughs, more check it outs, and stick around for much more fun content.
Yeah, we're doing some giveaways this month too, so keep those in mind. And until next time, make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed what you saw here. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay tuned. Leave a comment down below answering the question of the day. Exactly.
And have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, happy gaming. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.